serving in the position of the Assistant Commissioner of Early Childhood Education, formerly known as the Office of Early Learning. So we are the same folks, just a little different titles and division names. But in case you are wanting to know where to find us from VPK, that's where we live, in the Early Childhood Education Division, and we sit under the Office of Academics at the department. So just some of those nuances I wanted to say up front, but I wanted to say I miss just connecting with you. And so I thought that these webinars for us as VPK directors would be a great time for us just to connect, to stay connected, to receive feedback and input from one another throughout the spring. So especially as we're thinking through good use of our data that's been collected, thinking about our VPK application revisions. I definitely want your input. So you'll have an opportunity that we'll talk about in a few minutes for that. So I hope that you'll find these very helpful and that you'll enjoy them and feel like, I just feel like I feel connected and I know what's going on. So that's my intention, and there will be opportunity for you to provide feedback, like I said. So in that, if you would mute yourselves throughout the webinar, we are recording it so that you can go back and hear it again. And for those folks who were not able to attend, several folks are at the PI conference going on right now or have some other commitments. And so they always will be recorded and made available shortly after. You can still put some of your questions in the chat box, and I have Jessica Lohr that's keeping track of those, and so that we'll be able to answer those either within the webinar or following the webinar. We can get that information to you. So know that your questions matter, and we definitely want to see those, but we don't want to break the flow of the webinar so that everyone has an opportunity to hear all of the information. So again, if just mute yourselves, that'll help with the just the clarity of the webinar for us. So again, we hope to do these every 2 weeks, and we're excited that this is the first one. So welcome, everyone. I'm going to advance my slide, but I got hung up, so I'll keep talking for a second. Yeah. So again, just I always want to start our presentations, as you know, with our strategic plan. And this is a great new slide that I think some of you have been seeing out in the field already. But as you know, our department's strategic plan is best for all, and that we will set all students on a path to success in our 3 major priority areas being academics, whole child, and educators. Now, while I mentioned that the Early Childhood Division sits under the Office of Academics, it's exciting because pre-K lives in all 3 of these priority areas. As we think about all Tennessee students will have access to a high-quality education no matter where they live, and we believe that that starts with our youngest learners in the state of Tennessee. And whole child, I couldn't be more thrilled as an early childhood just educator and teacher at heart that whole child be thought of
I don't see any sound
coming through this. Through 12 and beyond, and thinking about what are the whole child supports that are not academic. In academic, I think someone needs to still mute themselves.
Our settings.
So I think that it's so exciting that we'll have these focuses on the non-academic and academic supports that will serve the whole child. And we've been saying that for years in our work, but how wonderful that that's going to stretch all the way through the K-12 space. And we've always been about supporting educators' development. And I'm super excited that we are really thinking about Tennessee becoming like one of the top states to attract and keep high-quality educators, and creating new pathways for that. We know that there are challenges and barriers, and so thinking about how we can leverage that for teachers and leaders, and especially in the early childhood space, I'm really interested in that.
How do you know that these people are talking?
I'm going to pause for a second. There's someone still here talking. If you can mute yourself, it will be better for everyone to hear. So I'll give you a second to mute yourself because we're hearing the conversation. Thank you. So here's our agenda just for today, and really this is like really going to be just more informational today, but then in our follow-up webinars, we will take the feedback that we receive from what we've presented, and we will share it back with you and allow you to interact with the feedback and kind of keep a feedback loop going of engagement. So today I wanted to really set the stage for the purpose of our webinars throughout the spring. I also wanted to reassure you that you are on track and doing well with what you should be. Like, I know that you got that big Christmas gift of not having to write the VPK application this year and being just allowed to just keep what you have going on and more time to work on your quality improvements and keep the good work going forward. But I know with that, you're like, whew, is there something I need to be doing? I'm nervous. And I know I've heard from you all, and I've talked with several of you. So I want you to know, yes, you're doing just great. There is no responses needed to put into ePlan in the application areas at this point. And if you were working on submitting your January 24th continuous quality improvement report, that was the biggest reporting expectation to date. And if you have not had the opportunity to get those in, we'd still like you to be able to put those in for our reporting for the mid-year reports. So please, if you needed extended time for that, we value that data and want to use that to inform the supports we develop for VPK. And we want to hear your voice, and we want to hear the data from your teachers. So please reach out to us and say, hey, yeah, I couldn't do that by the 24th, but I want to be able to get that in. Please do. Please go ahead and do that. You can still do that. And if you need help and support, let me know. And I'm going to present a 30-day challenge for curriculum implementation during this webinar to kind of solicit some participation. And then thinking about our VPK grant revision, I want your input on that application process, and I'll talk about that. And then I'll just set the stage for always sharing VPK student success stories. We are in legislation season, and we certainly want to be able to elevate up all the great work happening in VPK. And so the more shared student success stories we have, the better we can message out how we all really believe in the power of pre-K. So again, the purpose is really to help us stay connected and to provide you as a VPK director updates. And the updates that you'll be receiving throughout the spring will be about the VPK application timeline, program requirements, and what are we seeing in data trends and goals. That would be very, I think, informative for you. And then also it's going to provide us an opportunity to be engaged and also to have feedback sessions. And particularly, we're going to be focused on these things. Our curriculum implementation, how's it going? How can we support it? What are we learning from it? VPK grant application revisions, what could we be thinking about in a revised application itself and the process? A wait list and classroom needs. Several of you have reached out to me saying, my waiting list is growing enormously. So we need a way to track that and be able to communicate that. So we will be reaching out to you to say, if you can help us message your needs by having some type of tracking of what you have on your wait list and what your classroom needs are, then we can elevate those up. So without having a tracking to say, here's your need, it's difficult to say how many kids are on the waiting list and why there's a need for increased VPK allocations and more classrooms. And then, of course, we want to have feedback sessions on what supports and resources are needed for VPK. So let's just take a little trip down memory lane about what your reporting expectations are for VPK for the remainder of this year. This information is the same as we've been communicating, so please take a deep breath and say, phew, I've got this. This is what I thought, and this is what we're doing. So we have mid and end of the year VPK reports that are known as the continuous quality improvement plans. I was about to say reports. I was like, I need my letter P there. Those are still required as an expectation for you to complete. And as you remember, to complete those, you're using class data, if that's what you selected, or class and team, if that was your choice, or just team data or Tiger data or whatever alternative you use than team evaluation data. You can use any of those or all of those data points that you have to inform your continuous quality improvement plan. for those. And then you'll do the same thing for the end of the year. And you will just, we'll submit those the same way. And so the January 24th was the target for the mid-year reports, but if you'd still like to get those in, we'd certainly love to have those. Like I said, the more the better, and we want to represent you. So you can still turn those in for our continuous quality improvement plan reporting purposes. And then the end of the year reports, those plans are due June 15th. So if you didn't have that on your calendar, you might want to put that in your calendar. And so it'll be the same process, and we'll send some reminders, and we'll make sure you have the link again for that. But nothing there has changed. So you're like, phew, got this. And then several of you have been asking, like, well, what needs to go in E-Plan? So you're not going to respond to any like the application response areas, even though it seems like you should, like, because there's like, it looks like there's an opportunity to resist the temptation and don't make extra work for yourself. So when you have that impulse, just say, no. I heard Darlene say, nope, I don't have to do that right now. And so I'm not doing that. It's that you are doing the right thing. But what you should be doing that you always do is make sure that you are uploading in the related document area, like your updated CPAC meeting agendas and minutes, just like you've done every year. So those should be there, inclusive of who attended, the dates, what was discussed. So having those accurately uploaded and labeled properly is very helpful. You should, like you're always doing in the past, having your discipline plan attached in the E-Plan as a related document, as well as your VPK student application, a copy of that. So that should still be updated and represent the current application you plan to use this spring. Your VPK scope of services, now you have not received the updated one that'll go out later during the spring like it did last year, so be on the lookout. You might flag for yourself, and with our webinars, we'll certainly remind you. But you might just keep in your back of your mind that usually will come out like late May, so that when you want to get your signed assurances, you need to make sure you have the most revised version of that. Because I know when we went to approve budgets last year, there were several that, you know, like I love being an overachiever myself because it's like at least you can multitask and get things done and try to stay ahead of the game. But on that one, you want to just wait because you want to make sure you have the most revised and updated one so that you don't have to backtrack and get like your school director's signature on it and ask for it twice. And you know, so like we'll make sure that you know when that revised one is coming and which one that you need to use. And Jessica Lord is fantastic at making sure the updated one is even downloadable and readable from like E-Plan during that window of time it's needed. So just look for that to come. And then other updates in E-Plan that will follow the same thing that you're used to doing as well is making sure, this should be ongoing, regardless of the time of year, but making sure that teacher placement information is updated and accurate. So if you've replaced a teacher, there's new teacher information, please make sure that's entered in there and complete all information like their name, their endorsement areas, all of that should be filled in, their license number, all of that. So be sure that that's complete, but especially before I approve the budgets for the next year, I'm going to look for completed teacher placement information. So if you know of a change that's happening, or sometimes it happens overnight, as we know, but just make sure that that's complete and up to date, as well as your projected site locations. Like sometimes you move where you're having your VPK classroom, or you've had some changes, or whatever that is. Make sure the complete information is there, the name of the facility, the address, and how many VPK students are served. All of that should be updated and kept current. The budget submission for the next school year, I know that you'll be working on those, and I won't be approving those until, again, like probably like really towards like June 1st, probably, to make sure that you've had time to project for the next year. You'll know exactly what your cost will be. So that aligns with what you've always been doing. So know that you can just kind of just stay on the same track that you always have been doing with budget submissions. And with budgets, we've gotten really good at being really specific in what you list as like instructional materials. You've been great at itemizing those, so it shows that how these are being used and that they support pre-K instructional materials or your program, so continue to do that. Something else that speeds up the budget approval process when you have changes throughout the year is for you to label, like in the history log under comments, to say this change was made because of this. That helps us know like what I'm looking for. Otherwise, if I don't know what I'm looking for, I go through the whole application. I look all the way through, and if you just made 3 cents change on your budget item because there was a difference in insurance rates, I'm going to go through the whole thing, and I'm going to look at every teacher. I'm going to look at every teacher site location. I'm going to look at every related document. So that's going to take a longer process. So if you can flag those changes, that's great, and it will speed up your process to get that back to you as well. And then utilization information, please keep that current as well, and we'll let you know when to make sure that's entered so it really represents what the following year looks like for you. And I know many of you are enrolling in the spring as well. And we want to just continue to promote and encourage you to take the opportunity to reach out and really proactively look for children that are already being served, are coming out of like TEIS or Head Start programs or other inclusive programs that can come and be in VPK. So be proactive about your recruitment and thinking about what that looks like for your next year. But we'll have those things will need to be updated, but we will tell you when, like, okay, by this, we really need all information updated by this really drop date for sure. But in the process, you should be always updating like the teacher placement information, the projected site, and of course your budget as you go. So I'm just gonna pause for a second. There's some questions that were chatted. So,
yeah, so questions about updating e-plan, is that for just next year? I think it's talking through placement and all of that. So you say,
yeah, so that should, those updates that I'm talking, first of all, your updates for any current year, the question was what updates in regard to the updates, are we talking about the current year or next year? That was, someone wanted clarification around that. So first clarification on that is you should always do that throughout the year. If you've had a teacher change, that should be made and updated in ePlan. But for budget approvals for the next year, that needs to represent your teacher placement and locations and utilization numbers. All those things need to be representative of the coming school year. What is that going to be looking like? Because we're going to be using that information for that whole next cycle.
So you also touched on this, but just to reiterate, the deadline for when we're looking for this for the next school year.
For the information, for the updates in ePlan. So I would say to target, make sure that you have all your updates in ePlan. You can target June 1st because I'll start looking at those. If you need some kind of extended time, and just let me know. But I'm wanting to make your budget turnaround time sooner this year so that you can just have a lovely summer and not think about getting all those in. So I'm trying to gift you back some time. But still, I want to work with you because if it takes longer and you still have some teachers to place and things like that, of course, we can take a look at that. So
there's also a question on when we'll know next year's allocations in terms of classroom and money.
So for this coming school year, allocations and whatever money you were given from this past year will stay for the next school year.
There's other questions about the teacher qualifications. So are waivers allowed?
So teacher qualification questions regarding waivers. So this is the rule that, of course, we would desire to have a teacher in place that has the pre-K early childhood endorsement. Well, sometimes we know that that's challenging. So you can place a teacher, hopefully either they have like a kindergarten experience or something in the early grades for sure is preferable, but they can be placed on a 1-year waiver if you work through our teacher licensure division here at the department, and Michael Derlin is the point of contact for that. And so you need to be aware of the waiver process and approval process. And so make sure that you follow that, and that is only good for 1 year. So let's say I was put on a waiver right now today on January 29th, 2020, and I'm placed in the classroom. My 1 year follows the exact date of my waiver. So next year, if I have not picked up my endorsement and had a change in my certification, come mid-year next year, I cannot continue to teach in that classroom. So I think that's something to really note for yourself, that it's depending on when that waiver gets put in place, it's a 1 year from then. So, and then you can't have the same person serve on a waiver 2 years in a row or multiple years. You cannot. Like, yep. So if I'm on a waiver this year, I have a 1 year that I've used it's almost like 1 year ticket waiver. I've used it up. So you need, and then you need to follow that process. Now, let's just say you have, like that teacher decides to go and teach kindergarten, and now you have a new person in there that if that person has not had a waiver before, then they can have a 1 year waiver. So it's like each individual person can have a 1 year waiver. But what we are looking for, because we know that high quality teachers with the right endorsements are what's going to move the quality and keep the quality in pre-K and help us advocate for increased spending and allocations in the future. So we really want to prioritize making sure we have pre-K teachers with the right endorsements in there, but we understand that challenges exist.
There's another question about should they be entering substitute teacher data in the teacher placement section of ePlan?
If they are a long-term sub, you should probably enter that in ePlan so we can flag it. And you can never go wrong either if you include that as a historical comment in your application to say, hey, just want to flag this for you. Also to upload a related document to say long-term sub put in place at this time, and any information regarding that, I think would be super helpful.
There's another question about, will there be an increase in the budget to cover salary raises?
So as we know, to our knowledge, the same system is in place of how they calculate the VPK allocation. So it is based on a formula that is related to the BEP funding, and I really don't have the control over how that works. And I understand the challenges of increased salaries as well as insurance costs, so I continue to elevate those needs, and I hope that you will continue to document those needs so that we can advocate for increased funding for VPK.
There's also another question that I can address asking if we'll be providing a student application this year. So we are wrapping that up and we'll be sending that out shortly.
So, and just a clarification about the VPK student application, you still as a district create your VPK student application.
Yes. So we're providing the income.
We're providing the income verification according to the poverty guidelines. So there's always been some confusion around that. The actual, income verification chart that you may be waiting on is not the actual copy of a VPK student application. You do need that to inform your application so you know exactly the income level amounts. And so we are verifying those, and we'll get those to you shortly. Jessica just verified.
There's another question about if they're asking for an additional classroom for next year. How would that work?
So you can go ahead and express a need if you have a need for additional classrooms, as well as verifying how many's on your wait list. But as of right now, we are not changing any classroom allocations unless something else changes that we're not aware of. As part of not completing the application this year, we're staying with what everyone had as allocated, because we don't have an application to also competitively change those numbers if there's some that needed to be reduced in classroom numbers or added. So this is like a standstill year, but also to elevate those up, because there might be districts. That's why I want you still to communicate it to me, and some of you have, because there's some districts that said, you know, we no longer have a need for this classroom, and they will give their classroom back to say, please reallocate this to someone who has a need for it and has expressed that and can fill it. So with that, we'll know what that is. And I saw like a question just pop up that you will get an award letter so that you'll know what your allocations are. And so, yes, just the same as always, you will get that. Oh, good. Okay, we'll keep going. And Jessica's going to track some of the questions, and then we'll backtrack a little bit. So I wanted to just kind of throw out this challenge, and I hope that you will be excited to get your teachers to rally behind it. And I know that we are in our second year of implementing our pre-K curriculum, and know that the first year really kind of came to the pre-K teachers like really in a hurried fashion, and they were just getting used to it. And even in the second year, they've become more comfortable, but there's still some things that they might not be as sure about or would like more supports around. So we're in the process of developing some supports and some resources, but I wanted to make sure that we hear from the teachers themselves to make sure that we are meeting their needs. And so as I thought through that process, I thought about, sometimes we don't know what we need yet, because if I haven't really fully committed and tried for a period of time to implement the curriculum with true fidelity, meaning that I've still not put in my other things I used to do from this other curriculum, or an idea I caught off of Pinterest, or any wonderful idea I saw somewhere, if I'm still putting all those pieces into the curriculum, and then I might be not getting to another area of the curriculum because I'm not as confident or comfortable with that piece, then it's hard for me to really express what my needs are around curriculum support. So I thought it would be best if we had teachers take on a 30-day challenge for the month of like February to early March. You can kind of just use a parameter in there and say, for these 30 days, or even if you wanted to do 20 days and do it just for like the month of February or to the beginning of March, and say, encourage them to say, in this amount of time, commit to implementing the pieces the way they are, every part of it, so that then we can talk about, oh, what did you notice, and what supports would you need, and what went well, what do you still find that you need help with? Because if we do that, then we can really get at the root causes for why teachers aren't implementing curriculum with fidelity. We also know that, you know, to get there, it takes time and ongoing support. So we want to provide that ongoing support to them. And we want to be able to develop high-quality pre-K instructional supports and resources that match their needs and that support curriculum implementation. We currently have some districts participating in a small coaching pilot around curriculum implementation. And 2 out of those 4 districts so far have jumped on board for this 30-day challenge. And so I think that we're learning some great things from them, and that's with Connect for Learning curriculum. But I would love to hear the same things, feedback loops from Big Day for Pre-K and Creative Curriculum, so that we have all the curriculum represented and that we can hear from your teachers, because we want to be able to create resources and supports that represent your needs, and who better to hear from than the teachers. So we will give details following the webinar for a link for you to be able to say, hey, yes, I want to take the challenge, we're up for the challenge. And then at the end of the 30 days, we'll provide a link for you to provide some ahas, some things that the teachers really want support behind, and just get some feedback. And then we will share all the feedback back to you all in these webinars so that you can say, oh, look, we found that too, or that's not what we're finding, so that we can all learn from each other and think about what kind of instructional supports are needed. And we'll definitely will highlight the districts who are taking the challenge in the upcoming our webinars, as well as communications that we push out to the department, because we want to really show how we're getting behind this. So I would love to hear lots of folks interested in taking the challenge, and hope that you will rally behind this and see that it's valuable. And I think by just creating, not that we wouldn't want them to do it all year long, but making it manageable. I think about, you know, everyone probably made a New Year's resolution, and something we know about resolutions, sometimes they don't really stick because it seems like a long way to get to the end goal. So thinking about a shorter window to meet the goal, and saying teachers might really say, I can do this, I'll try this for, you know, 30 days, and have a little countdown and make it really fun and say, for 30 days, I'm really gonna try this, and then I'll be able to report back on what I think. And so it's not a gotcha, but it's really about help us to help you, and we will really get to those root causes and know what the supports really look like that are needed. So I'm hoping that we have lots of folks that reach out to us to say, yes, we're, you know, our district is up for the challenge. The commissioner's pretty excited about the 30-day challenge for pre-K and wants to be able to kind of see which districts are behind that as well. And after this webinar, we'll also send a link for you to provide just your input on what you think would be great revisions for the VPK application. And I kind of put some bullets here to get you started. I know we've heard you over and over to say the length of the application is super challenging and super time consuming and rigorous in that sense. So I want to challenge you to help me help you to think through what it could be, knowing that by legislation, it still has to be a competitive grant process. We still need to be able to tell how we are quality and how we're moving quality, improving quality, sustaining quality, and thinking about what data needs to be included, and how could data that's being collected be substituted for answering questions on an application. So just throwing out like something to chew on or think about is, so like we know that you just had some class data. So are there parts of the application, as you look through the previous application, are there parts of the class data that could substitute out for you to respond to, like say around teacher-child interactions or instructional practice? Are there opportunities for that? Is there other data we should think about that could be opportunities for that? And knowing that, we have to have data that we can look across all programs in an application. So think about that. If we shorten the application, how do we still answer the question that we have high quality instruction, we have a plan in place for high quality teachers and things like that? How are we making sure that we are serving the students it's intended to? How do we track that? How do we strengthen data evidence of our quality improvements and our need for VPK seats? And so there's lots of things to think about when you think about like what about that question or something? So think about not only like you might not like that part of the application particularly because it was like exhaustive, or like, you know, maybe we didn't need it. Did you think it was redundant? So as you think about what might need to be cut, I want you to think about how we can get the same information in a different way. So be solution focused to say, okay, this was a challenge and here's how I think we could solve it. So because we could end up at the end of the day with a lot of challenges, but without solutions, we won't get to revision. And so we'll look for your feedback, because who better to ask than you, who's been through the process of it. Also be thinking about the competitive grant process itself, and thinking about this year and maybe elevating up like the advantages of having a little more time between writing a grant application. How has that been beneficial or challenging? Could be both, right? How might the grant cycle be thought of differently? So I'm just throwing some buzz ideas out to you, but you probably have been thinking about this. So we will provide a link for you to really provide some feedback and input. And then on our next VPK webinar, we'll provide some highlights from that feedback and let you interact with that feedback some more so that throughout the process we can get your input. I just want to pause there just to see. We're good. And I want to back up for just a second. I know I'm going to back up for a second. I'm going to go right here for a second because one thing I probably should have put on this slide that says VPK reporting expectations, to be sure that you're receiving all updates that we send out or these invitations to the webinars, we go by the contact information that's currently in the e-plan. So if you're somebody that says, I'm not getting any of the information, please send me all the VPK things. We really require you to have the updated contact list in e-plan because we will export that, and that's the list we use to push out anything we're sharing about VPK, any invitations to things. And I will say this, do us a favor also. If there are folks on your contact list that shouldn't be on there anymore, they would love it if they were removed because they are getting information that maybe they no longer serve in that role, and then that would kind of cut out for them to say, hey, this is not my role. But if they're listed, they're going to get the information because that's the best way we can verify that that's the folks that we need to be reaching out to. So help us help you by adding that as a required update in e-plan. Make sure that, and double check, we have some of the e-plan contact information. There's a typo in the email, so they never get it. It's the right person, but there's a glitch in the email. There's folks that have been in VPK director for 10 years, and then their school system changed, whether it was a .org and now it's a .net. Well, that wasn't updated, so they're not getting it. So just do us a favor and make that as a task today or this week to say, let me just go in and check e-plan, the contact information, to make sure that we're receiving everything. Yep, and Jessica's going to add something more.
So if you need help with that, there is just a brief form that you have to complete and have signatures from your district. So if you need help or you don't have that form, just please shoot me an email. I have the form that I can send you and a quick little instruction document to go with it, and happy to help answer any questions that go along with it.
And I also want to throw out there, I know that we have several new VPK directors. So I wanted to say welcome again to you. And I understand that you may need some more maybe individual support in knowing what you need to be doing and a little extra than folks that have been doing this for a little while longer. So if you will email us and say, hey, I'm one of those new folks that you talked about, we can probably schedule a webinar that's designed for new VPK directors so that we can help support you around just nuances about e-plan and some of those other things that you may really need extra support with, and we're happy to do that. So just, you can email myself or Jessica Lord and let us know that. We're happy to provide that support as well. And so then every webinar, I just wanted to be able to share a VPK student success story. And I'm going to kind of have a little friendly competition among districts to see if you'll send us some success stories that we can share out during the webinar. So yours might get chosen for next time if you send it. But I wanted to share one that I have from Robertson County. I've been doing some VPK visits, and I'm so excited. I'm reserving my Fridays to go out and visit some VPK classrooms. So you may see me appear, and I'll email you to see if I can set it up. And it's been so great to be with the children, see the teachers, and just be out in the classrooms. And so I thought I would share this one with you. So I was in one of the classrooms and was deeply touched by little 4-year-old Evelyn. And she came up to me and she shared her solution suitcase that she had crafted with, markers and different types of paper, and she, had it all just the way she wanted it. And, inside her suitcase, she had lots of scribbles and drawings and lots of things going on. And she told me that this is very important. This is very important, her solution suitcase. And so I asked her, why is this such an important thing that you made? And she said, well, you see, whenever my friends are scared, sad, or need help, they can look in this solution suitcase and they can see solutions so that they know what choices they can choose to help solve whatever problem they're feeling or they're afraid of. And so she said, these scribbles, and like she pointed to her scribbles and the drawings and said, each of these are a solution my friends can choose from. And I just elated over that because I thought, like, wow, this is a great example, first of all, of how non-academics and academics meet each other. There's this idea of, like, she had her developmental writing going on, but it was purposeful because she also was communicating that this is a need. My friends need to know where to get solutions from. I also thought it was a great example of how what she had written may not have conveyed all that was there. So often we know pre-K kids know more and can express more orally than they can in written form. And so it was a great example of how oral language development is being fostered and there's opportunities for them to share. And then even more than that, the developmentally appropriateness of, she was given open-ended materials to create this, her version of a solution suitcase. You know, she didn't have to do it just one way, so she could explore the different types of materials and she could design it that way. It was connected to real life. And even more than that, the solution suitcase is part of the Connect for Learning curriculum. So it was a great example of, they implement that, it's a part of the curriculum, and it's in action, and the kids valued it. Like, she obviously had been taught it. I saw examples of a solution suitcase for the class posted in the classroom, but then she valued it to create her own. And so that was a great extension of the concept. Even when we think about class data, when we think about how do we measure concept development, we think about, has a concept been taught, and then how has the child internalized it and shown it, like, represented in another area or across the day or across experiences. So obviously this is a great example of that as well. So I was so excited just to see that. And I was able to bring that example back to the department and to talk about that and to say, this is something great that I saw in the pre-K classroom. And so if you have these stories, I know you do, please share those with us that really show our desired instructional shifts, that it tells us, you know, just the wonderful things that are happening in pre-K. So if you would email those to me, I put my email up on this slide, and I will select some to highlight and push out, and I would delight in doing that. We are, again, in legislative season. There's no better time to elevate up great success stories to keep the focus on pre-K. I'll pause for a second to see, do we have any other questions coming in?
There's one question. So about the quality improvement plans for the spring that they would be submitting in June. When the class is conducted, if they're doing class the second time, are the observers only supposed to look for the domains and dimensions from the first semester in order to complete the quality improvement plan?
So the question is around the spring, using class assessments again, and then completing the continuous quality improvement plan.
Mm-hmm. So I think for Catherine said for the follow-up. So when you're doing class the second time, the expectation is still that it's a full class observation.
That's correct. Yes, the expectation is it's another full class observation assessment so that we can look at all the pieces, because what that will do for us, like let's say you scored really high, like in emotional domain, it'll show consistency that it also stayed high. Or if there was a dip, wouldn't we want to know why, right? So like we would want to know why or what supports we can put around that, or was that just that day, or what? Like there's lots of things, right? It's not a gotcha again, but again it informs us. But also that to show growth, like if there was we know nationally that instructional supports are lower, but then by making sure that we have those scores across there, we can also see like, I wonder that when my scores in these other domains, how that impacted my instructional scores as well, because we know they have an impact when we think about the non-academic supports and the academic supports. So just having that full picture will be very, very helpful. Now, that's not to say, like, when you set the goals, like, you may be still putting your goals towards, like, the lower scored ones and saying, this is where I want to lean in. And I would encourage you to go a little bit deeper and say, what parts of the instructional support? Because they may have scored high on certain pieces, but there's the indicators, that there might be one indicator that could have raised their whole score. To zero in on that as setting the goal, and then look and see if there was supports put around that. Was there any movement? And maybe not. Maybe it takes longer to see that movement, and that's okay to note. But I think that that's the real opportunity with having your own data that digs down to the indicator level, that you can really set goals around there, set support for those specific areas.
So to follow up on that, she asked the follow-up section on the quality improvement plan. So yes, Catherine, you should be completing the follow-up column there, but you could find something else in one of the other sections that Darlene mentioned in class, that perhaps there was a dip in a different area that wasn't addressed in the initial plan, so you might want to talk about that. But yes, you should, in the spring quality improvement plan, should be addressing what you're seeing from fall to spring in what has been filled out on that form.
And so then just kind of making a connection for you too, as you're thinking about going back to this slide where the VPK application revision, I want you to thoughtfully think about how the information from the continuous quality improvement plan could inform the VPK revision process. Could data from that be considered part of the application, and how do you envision that? Because you remember the SMART goal, like where you had to write SMART goals and things in the application. So think about how could those be inserted, and then you wouldn't have to create some other SMART goals perhaps. So just a thought.
And I've seen a few more questions just come in. So you're not making an entirely different quality improvement plan for the spring. It's just editing the current one that you had just submitted last week, or if you're still wrapping that up, and then just telling us what you've seen new in the data that was collected in the spring. So you're not completing a brand new plan. It's not an entirely
You would really just create an update, like what happened, like what did you see, and what were the results of some of the things that you helped try to put some supports around. So you might even put a date out in the narrative or something, like in the space, to say, you know, here's a follow-up, or here's like what we've noticed. So that I just don't want it to be a report that just was reported. I want it to be actionable feedback that you can use and just look back on and say, here's what we noticed and here's what happened, like what changed saw, or we need more time to see change and here's what we're going to do to support this teacher. That's perfectly acceptable.
We've gotten a few questions about class versus team. One that I think we can take is, if they use class for the first semester and they're now opting out in the spring, would they just give us team data in the spring?
So there's a question around the class and team kind of data and selection around that. First, I will say is we're being very consistent. Any questions around the class and team evaluation side of that, please reach out to Jamie Grimsley's team, because they're working fast and furious on those pieces. So I want to make sure that you have clear, streamlined language around that. But for our purposes, so that we are really focused on the continuous quality improvement efforts of VPK, if you elected to just go ahead and just use team throughout the year for whatever reason it is, and you're going to use that data on your report, let us know if you'd still like the opportunity to have a post-class assessment, because we can have folks from our division come and do that for you. But please let us know so that we can help you, because I know there's just time challenges, and for whatever other reasons that you chose to do it differently is notable. But we would like you to have the opportunity again to have this information from class to inform quality improvement efforts that we're looking at specific to VPK program and instruction in our VPK space. So let us know, and I would reach out directly for class assessment support. First of all, you can reach out to your program evaluators as a first reach out, but you can certainly reach out to Misty Moody, misty.moody@10.gov, and she will help give you support around that. And she too can give you information around ECHR's training availability. So that would also be reach out to Misty Moody. She can talk you through those. and let you know. She's also going to be posting, so you're going to get in this week's, or it's either this week or next week, so you look for it, director's update, the commissioner's director update, that you'll have a series of training dates for class. If you said, you know, I really didn't have the opportunity to take class, or I have principals who are really interested, but they didn't really want to use class data because they didn't have time to get class reliable or trained. She's offering intro trainings as well as reliability trainings, so that if folks want to be able to have that and then make an informed decision for next year, they certainly will have that. So look for that in the director's update, the series of dates. And I will tell you this, once you see them, and if you really have folks interested, reach out early, because she has a set amount of seats that can be in each one of those trainings just by the design of the training reliability. So you want to make sure that you reserve your space there. So again, the class training availability will be, there will be some dates that that will be going out, and we're offering them around the state. So just check those out. And Misty Moody is leading that work. Feel free to reach out directly to her. She welcomes that. And she's also happy to do like some intro trainings to help teachers better understand the class tool, because we've had some requests for that as well. So here's the idea, like some folks have been saying like, oh, we really miss, you know, our early learning 2.0 trainings and just feeling connected in that way. We have kind of plans to do trainings, but we're shifting kind of our focus to more targeted. So we're not trying to do a one-size-fits-all training where we all work together and you might have gotten a couple of pieces that you could apply to your district needs out of a big training. So we're trying to gather information from your continuous quality improvement plans, your class data or /team data or whatever data you submitted for those, as well as, you know, we have our early childhood quality specialist doing walkthrough kind of data collection and just kind of looking at curriculum in action. The 30-day curriculum challenge would help inform that. And so we want to be able to come closer to you and to your district needs and offer some training supports and resources that are more targeted to what you need. But in order for us to know what those are, we need kind of some input and feedback loops. And so look for those, and we're excited that we're going to be able to offer training in a different way and resources that way, supports. All right. So again, be thinking about I know lots of you have ideas for the VPK application revision, and also reach out to your teachers for input on that, as well as your director of school, so that, you know, like you can involve as many folks in the process of that to say, hey, what would we think about suggesting, or what are some things, so that we can have those feedbacks to bring back and input. So again, don't forget to send me your student success stories, and I can't wait to feature the next one, so you can email those directly to me. We will record these webinars, so in case like the next one we have, we're hoping to schedule these every 2 weeks to kind of give you an update and share feedback. So we will send a link for you to provide some like application feedback, and if there's a student story that we're going to select, we'll share that. But we will share the feedback as it comes in, so then we can interact, and then you can give some feedback again, so that it's a reciprocal process as we try to think through these together. And we'll highlight the districts that have taken the challenge for curriculum implementation. So you will be featured next webinar to say who's up for the challenge, and so we'll list those districts who are taking the challenge with us. I think there's another question that maybe popped up that I missed.
So there's a question about verifying quality improvement plans that were received for the fall. So you should have received the confirmation emails when they were submitted. There's an email address that has to be input into the form. If you did not get a confirmation email for any or all of the ones that you submitted, please email me and I can verify them. But if you did submit and you received that confirmation email, then you are all set.
Great. And I just put my contact information up on the last slide. Again, so you'll have my email and my phone number. Also know that you can contact Jessica Lord at 10.gov as well. And Jessica helps with like lots of the data questions, as well as like the continuous quality improvement plan questions. So she's a great contact for that. But again, if you want to get more immediate answers around class trainings, ECHRS training, Missy Moody would be the direct line for that you'll get that information quickly and to reserve some spaces with her.
So I'll also send a follow-up email to all VPK directors notifying you when the recording for this webinar is available, since a few of you have asked that. Unfortunately, it takes some time, and it's not exact when I can't give you an exact amount of time. The way that our technology works takes a little bit of time to process, so we hope to get that to you as quickly as possible, and I will email you so you know as soon as it's available. We also received a question about if we could send out an FAQ with some of the questions that have been sent out to follow.
We can, yeah, we definitely can put together an FAQ that will kind of take people's questions and put the answers together. All right, well, and if you've popped questions in that we didn't get to, we will add those to the FAQ that we compile, as well as add them to like adding those as the feedback loops that we're creating, so that we can kind of talk through some revisions or just kind of some reflections on what we have going on. So we welcome your input. I hope that you'll embrace these webinars that we have, and whether you can attend them live or hear the recorded version, I hope that you'll find them engaging. Like I said, this one was pretty informational driven. And I hope that you feel, first of all, comforted in knowing that you are doing the right things, that you're not behind on anything or have left something off, that you're, you know, like you feel like a sense of less fear that you're not doing what needs to be done for the VPK application. I hope you feel at ease with that. And I hope that you have a good sense of what needs to come, and we'll send out reminders as well. And of course, we'll touch back on these you know, every 2-week webinars that we're going to have available for you. So thank you again. I know that your time is valuable, and I appreciate you taking this time with us. And I look forward to seeing some of you out in the field as I visit on Fridays. And I just can't wait to hear your success stories. And I can't wait to see the just huge number of districts up for the 30-day curriculum challenge. So take care, and we'll talk soon in a couple of weeks.